Ladies and gentlemen, I have a question for you. Other than the Trump campaign, has there been another campaign in American history where the FBI, and let's use the language of the goofballs, had an informant in the campaign? We know of one that I told you about yesterday, thanks to our buddy Jeff Lord over at Newsbusters. LBJ against Barry Goldwater. But do we know of any in modern times? You know, J. Edgar Hoover is much hated by the left, by the media. A lot of things he did he shouldn't have done. And yet look how the media reacts here. Look how we have Republicans spinning. I sure as hell hope you watch my show on Sunday at 10 p.m., Life, Liberty, and Levin. I have Andy McCarthy and David Limbaugh. And we're going to get into all this. And we are three buddies, by the way. But yes, we're going to get into all of this. The spy situation. The FICE application. All of it. Because you're hearing a lot of BS. If the FBI having an informant or more in a campaign is no big deal, then why isn't it done all the time? Well, Mark, we only had the Russians in this case. No, we didn't. That's not true. It's not true. Once the FBI knew about the dossier, presumably knew that the Hillary Clinton campaign and the DNC paid for it, presumably knew that Christopher Steele had gotten information, unverified, by the way, by Kremlin apparatchiks. Did they put an informant in the Hillary Clinton campaign? Did they put an informant in the DNC? Was the FBI playing it by the book? Now, we know they weren't playing it by the book because we have a whole history of how they let Hillary Clinton off rather than charge her for serial violations of the Espionage Act. They didn't play it by the book. And this phony nonsense they want to know about Russia interfering in our campaign. They controlled the whole damn government, the Democrat Party, the Obama administration. Comey, Brennan, Clapper, Lynch, they had the whole damn thing. Every intelligence agency, every federal law enforcement agency. They own it. And here we are talking about Trump, who did nothing. He's the victim. The victim. It just shows you the tolerance for tyranny on the left, the media, and some of these clown Republicans. I just heard somebody say, and I won't embarrass them, the government has informants all the time. But the government doesn't have informants in presidential campaigns all the time. The hell? And so the big question is, what did the FBI do about Russian interference in our election? What did it do? Exactly. We know that the cybersecurity team at the White House was told by the National Security Advisor, quote, stand down. Do not prepare an options memo for the President of the United States. August 2016. That's a big deal. Why? At the very same time, they have an informant in the Trump campaign. At the very same time, they're unmasking American citizens. And yet, when it actually comes to the Russians interfering in our campaign, we are never told what the Obama administration did to stop it, to address it, to confront it, to control it. They didn't even tell Congress about it until a week or two before the campaign. And if an informant was placed in the Trump campaign or was hanging around the Trump campaign, and the goal was not to investigate Trump but to investigate the Russians, then I have a question for you. Why didn't Mr. Comey tell the incoming president of the United States about it? You know he didn't. If Trump wasn't under investigation, if his campaign was not under investigation, as Mr. Gowdy insists, it was the Russians who were under investigation, as Mr. Senior Judicial Analyst insists, as Shep insists. Okay, then explain to me why they didn't tell the incoming President of the United States that they had an informant, not for the purpose of investigating him, not for the purpose of investigating his campaign, but for the purpose of protecting his campaign, one of them said, and for the purpose of finding out what the Russians were up to. Why did they keep that information from Trump? And why weren't there more informants in the other campaigns, if that was the goal? And why? And why was the cyber security chief at the White House told to stand down when he approached Susan Rice and told her, look, the Russians are interfering in the campaign. Stand down and don't prepare a memo for the president. This is why Gowdy is a fraud. He's an intellectual lightweight. This is why, no, I will not rely on Shep Smith or the senior judicial analyst. And I'm not putting them down personally. I'm really not. But if you're going to present yourself and make your arguments, you better back them up. And this is why you don't trust the media in this country. Because they will take anything by any Republican, by anyone, a porn star, a phony author, a nutty professor, and run with it for weeks at a time. And run with it. Because they hate Trump. They're rooting for Kim Jong-un against Trump. They're rooting for the North Korean regime, a genocidal regime, a man who kills family members against Trump. They want Trump to fail, which means Kim Jong-un will retain nuclear warheads and ICBMs that threaten us. But that's okay because, you see, the fight is over politics, not national security as far as they're concerned. They're nuts. And so it is. Incredible. So, almost 2 weeks ago, Thursday, and we did it on our Best Of show, Memorial Day, the New York Times has this explosive article which is intended to protect the leakers, protect the rogue agents at the FBI, protect the Obama administration. And yet it revealed an enormous amount of information. We spent 90 minutes going over it. And there were some blockbusters in there, including the informant. And so now we've had 2 weeks of propaganda, where you're supposed to believe the informant's not a spy, where you're supposed to believe the FBI's playing by the book, where you're supposed to believe what else did you expect them to do, and now we're really supposed to believe it because Trey Gowdy says so. Screw Trey Gowdy. He doesn't mean anything to me. Why do I have to listen to Trey Gowdy? Or the other two? Cares what he has to say. Facts are facts. The law's the law. Tradition is tradition. And no, we do not have informants in political campaigns reporting to the FBI. Name another one. Lyndon Johnson. A disgrace. Name another one. Oh, you can't. Oh, well, they're just doing it by the book, folks. Just by the book. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
It's a shame that I have to state this from time to time, but let me state it again. There are areas in which I disagree with President Trump, although there are fewer and fewer, but there are areas in which I disagree with President Trump. The more he does what I consider to be conservative things, the more he deserves credit and praise. He's far more conservative, in my view, than George W. Bush was, or George H.W. Bush, with some exceptions, but not a lot. With some exceptions, but not a lot. The never-Trumpers aren't conservatives per se. They're anti-Trump. Now, this issue, the why I'm so passionate about this issue, about these efforts to topple this president, for me, is a constitutional matter. Now, the great thing about being on radio is I speak 3 hours a day. Levin TV, I speak almost 1 hour a day there. Now with the Fox show. So my comments, my views, my approach, there's no reason to be confused by them, and there's no reason for people who despise me to try and spin them. My problem with this is all the lawlessness coming out of the Obama administration and the Democrat Party supported by the media. My problem is, whether people like it or not, Donald Trump is a duly elected president of the United States, and from day one, they've been trying to depose him. He was elected democratically and through the electoral process, through our constitutional system, and they're trying to use extra-constitutional, if not unconstitutional, means to remove him. They want to remove him, then they should be waiting, like everybody else, for the election cycle and run the best candidate they think they have. But that's not what they want to do. First, they attack the Electoral College. Remember that? We got to get rid of it, elect somebody like Trump. But now it's more than that. They brought up the 25th Amendment. The 25th Amendment has nothing to do with this. And after I pointed it out day after day for about 3 weeks, they dropped the 25th Amendment. Then they got their special counsel. The appointment of the special counsel, in my view, is unconstitutional because of the breadth of his charge. A person who works for the President of the United States cannot confer upon another person more powers than a person's allowed to confer on them without going through the appointments clause of the Constitution. Here again, the senior judicial analyst doesn't know what he's talking about, respectfully. So I'm concerned about the attacks on the Electoral College at the beginning. I'm concerned about the political effort to remove this president. I'm concerned about this special counsel. I don't care if it's Donald Trump or Donald Duck. To me, this is a defense of Republican government, small r Republican government. For me, this is a defense of the Constitution. And if people cannot put their politics aside, their hate for Trump aside, their never Trumpism aside, then the hell with them. They're throwing in with the tyrants. That's where I'm coming from. I do not believe it is usual, traditional, okay, for the FBI to have an informant in a political campaign. I absolutely do not. And to downplay that and try and dumb down the American people is an outrage, an absolute outrage. To try and get the president on perjury and obstruction and false statements when you have absolutely no criminal basis for even interviewing him is an outrage, an absolute outrage. And so that's where I'm coming from. Mark hasn't changed at all, period. This is my view. This has always been my view. It always will be my view. Constitution first, country first. And it just so happens it lines up behind Trump in this case. And so you never Trumpers and you hate Trumpers and you leftists out there, screw you. You're not constitutionalists. You're not civil libertarians. You're throwing in with the mob. The mob. MSNBC, CNN, ABC, CBS, NBC, New York Times, Washington Post. They're the mob. That's what they are. And no, I will not throw in with them. The fact that you have a guy like Trey Gowdy popping off and I'm supposed to follow Trey Gowdy? The hell would I follow Trey Gowdy for? Or any of these other knuckleheads? Why? Because they want to be praised by the liberal media? They have their own agendas? Trey Gowdy's a politician. Bobbing and weaving all the time. What do I care what Trey Gowdy has to say? All right.